What's up again, everybody? I'm Clayton. Welcome back to Ages of Film. It's good to kick it with you guys again. As you can tell by the title, we got another director filmography that we're ranking today. Zack Snyder. You're up to bat, son. Let's do it. Before we get into this video, I just want to say what is up to any new subscribers I have. Thank you very much for being here, for smashing that subscribe button, joining the pack. I greatly appreciate it. Also, don't forget to smash that like button, give me a thumbs up. And if you're new to my channel and you haven't subscribed already and you're enjoying the content, go ahead, do yourself a favor, Kimosabi, smash that subscribe button. I greatly appreciate all you guys. You know that. I love all of you, and thank you very much for tuning in. All right, so we got 11 movies to rank in Zack Snyder's filmography. All 11 movies that he has directed. We're going to rank them worst to best as always. Now, here's the thing. He doesn't have a single bad film. So all these films, even number 11, is still what I would consider a good film, a 3-star film. So if you're a Zack Snyder fan and you love one of the films I have down at the bottom of this list, just know all these films are good films, in my opinion. He doesn't have a single bad film. He's one of my favorite filmmakers, one of my favorite directors. I'm a fan of all his work. Some is clearly better than other films that he's done, but again, his worst is still, I would consider, a good film. If you're new to my channel and you haven't kicked it with me in a ranking video, I have 3 criteria that go into rating a film. They are the technical aspects of the filmmaking. How well made is the film? The second criteria is the emotional effect that it had on me. What did it do emotionally for me? Did it move me? Did it frighten me? Did it make me laugh hysterically? Did it build suspense, build tension? What kind of emotional effect did it have? And then the third criteria is the rewatch value, the enjoyment I had with the film. So those are my 3 criteria. All 11 films ranked. Let's get started. So coming in at the bottom, number 11 is Sucker Punch. Again, a good film. I did enjoy this film. I think that it wasn't, for me personally, it wasn't on the level of Snyder's other work when it comes to storytelling and visually putting a film together. I think it's a good film, and I think that the characters are entertaining. I am able to invest in the characters, and the twist at the end of the film in that third act. It did work. It worked for me. I thought, I didn't see it coming necessarily. So it worked for me. It landed. I think there was an emotional, an emotional effect there with that twist, because I had invested with the characters. That emotional effect did land, and it paid off for me. I think where some of the problems come up is in the execution of the script, and this is a very strange story in the sense that it's kind of this fantasy action film that's also taking place in real life. So it's like trying to blend 3 different genres all together. And like this character drama with fantasy, with action. And I just don't feel that it all comes together as well as I would have liked it to. So that's one of the big issues, is just trying to understand the story here and what exactly it is that's going on. I think things could have been flushed out a little bit more in the script department. I don't know that I necessarily buy all of the performances here. I do think the antagonist was pretty good. I like the main blonde girl in this film. I think she has a good character development through the film. You kind of get her story throughout the film. I will say the real final girl in this film, I think they may have, I think a little bit more of her development would have made that character land a little bit more for me personally. But overall, a good film. 3 stars. I did have a good time with it. I would rewatch it again, and it was entertaining. So Sucker Punch at the bottom for me, my least favorite Zack Snyder film, but again, still a good film. 3 stars. So it comes in at number 11. Coming in at number 10, we have Legend of the Guardians, the Owls of Ga'Hoole. This is an animated film by Zack Snyder that I did not think I was going to like. If you're new to my channel and you don't really, you're still trying to vibe with me and get to know me, I'm not a big animated film guy. Animation just not really the genre I gravitate towards. Just not really my thing. Not every type of film is everyone's can of beans. So, and for me, animation just isn't. Animation and foreign films are just 2 types of films I don't really kick it with that much. So I did not think I was going to enjoy this film, but I watched it and I was pleasantly surprised with it. I actually did enjoy it quite a bit. I would give it a solid 3 stars for an animated movie. It kept my attention. I was invested into the story. I thought it's very good storytelling by Snyder. I thought the animation looked really good. I liked the main characters that we go through this journey on. I thought the antagonist worked. You buy into his story and his reasoning, where he's coming from. It was a coherent story. It made sense. It was entertaining. It kept my attention. So for an animated film to do that, thumbs up, man. So yeah, Legend of the Guardians. Who would have thought that I would have enjoyed this movie? A movie about owls, an animated movie about owls, actually worked for me. 3-star film. I like it, and I actually would be more likely to come back to this movie before Sucker Punch. There you go. So Legend of the Guardians is my number 10. Moving on to number 9, we have Army of the Dead from, I believe, 2020. Yeah, I think 2021 is when this one came out, starring Dave Bautista. Kind of a zombie, another Zack Snyder zombie movie that I actually really liked. I did. A lot of people I've heard were kind of hard on this movie. It took some hits from critics. Doesn't really mean a whole lot to me, because I really don't care all that much what critics have to say about any movie, to be honest, because I think critics come at movies from a very narrow lens, and they only look at one thing, and they miss the bigger picture a lot of times as what the director was trying to do and what actually matters in film. They just try to look at like technical aspects and not so much the viewing experience, which at the end of the day is what film is about. It's an experience. It's a visual method of storytelling, and that's why I put the most stock in the rewatch value of a movie and the experience I had with the movie, because that's the biggest part of the puzzle of filmmaking, is the experience that the audience has with the movie. That's what matters most. The technical side of things do matter. They absolutely matter. But the viewing experience is the most important part of the piece, of the whole puzzle. And I feel like a lot of times critics miss that. They just look at the technical side of things and think, well, because the story wasn't as good of a story as this other film, that means the movie's a trash film. But they just completely disregard the actual viewing experience of the audience. And for me, I actually had a really positive experience with Army of the Dead. I totally bought into the main character of Dave Bautista and his relationship with his daughter that he's trying to rekindle, trying to make up for lost time. It's a story that I think a lot of people can relate to. I think all of us, if we could have time back with people that we love and do things differently, we would. And I think that Dave Bautista wishing that he could have done things differently with his daughter, could have been there more, wishing that he could make up, for that lost time, I think is a very relatable story. I think it's executed well. I think the pacing is brilliant here. Snyder keeps you at a pretty good pace throughout the movie. I don't think there's any part of the movie that drags and is very slow and boring, but it doesn't move so fast to where you just get exhausted and you need some slower moments. I think it's pasted very, very well. I also like the zombies. I like the effects. Snyder always has beautiful cinematography in his film, a lot of gray hues that he likes to use. I thoroughly enjoy this movie. So I would give this movie 3.5 stars. I think it's a step above the bottom two. I don't think it's his best zombie movie, and we'll obviously get to another one on this list in a little bit. But overall, I do think it lands for me, and I do thoroughly enjoy it. It's my number 9. Coming in at number 8 is the newbie, the new guy on the block. His newest and latest film, Rebel Moon Part 2, The Scargiver. The one that just came out earlier this year. It's still available, I think, on Netflix. You can watch it there, I believe. A lot of people, a lot of critics were not a fan of this movie. I've heard a lot of pushback against this movie, people not liking it at all. I'm not one of those people. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I really did. I had a really positive viewing experience with this movie. I think people, when I've heard some of the criticisms of this movie, I think people are overly critical with it, and I think people take off way too many points from this movie for the criticisms that I don't think I don't think warrant those big of hits off of it from a grading perspective. I think that some of the criticisms I've heard have actually stuck with me, and thinking about them more, I think some of them are very valid criticisms, but I still had a positive experience with the movie. It still absolutely had an emotional impact there. It absolutely connected emotionally for me because I bought into these characters in the first film. So some of the things that happened in this film had an emotional effect there. I loved the action that Snyder directs. I think absolutely works. It amps me up, gets me excited. I think his visual effects are beautiful. They look very good. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I think some of the criticisms have actually stuck for me. I think I had this film like 4 stars initially. It has come down to 3.5 stars now, just because, again, some of those criticisms have kind of stuck with me as I've thought about them more. I do think they try to cram in a little too much exposition in a particular scene. They try to just give all these characters backstories and expect you to just buy into all of it in one scene. I do feel like it's a little It's a little too much to kind of cram in there. But and there's a few other criticisms I think in the script department that do work. But again, I don't think any of it warrants deducting, 80% of the overall quality of this film. I think it is still a film that works. I don't think it's just a filler for the finale. I do think it had something to say. Again, I think the characters had some development, a positive experience. I enjoyed it. I give it 3.5 stars. It is my number 8. Coming in at number 7, right above that one, we have the first Rebel Moon movie, Rebel Moon Part 1, A Child of Fire, that came out last year, and I believe is also still available on Netflix. You can check that one out as well. I do think this is a better film than Part 2. This first one, I think, had some really good character writing. I think they set up the characters in a way where you buy into them and into their reasoning, into their story. You feel something there. I think Snyder does a good job at making you connect with these characters. I connect with them. I think, you feel a level of sympathy for these characters and just the oppression that they're facing by this higher, imperial power that's out there. I think that the action is great, and it has a great antagonist that I absolutely despise the villain in this movie. I think he does a great job in his performance, really making me hate him as I do. I think the third act is brilliant, and the fight there is choreographed just brilliantly. This is a great film. I think Rebel Moon Part 1 is a 4-star film. It is a film that I love, thoroughly enjoyed it, and it's my number 7. Coming in at number 6, we have the other Zack Snyder zombie movie, his first feature film, which was, of course, Dawn of the Dead, the remake from 2004. This is a remake of George A. Romero's Dawn of the Dead from the 70s. I personally think this remake is a much better film than the original Dawn of the Dead. I am not a fan of the George A. Romero Dawn of the Dead from the 70s. I've seen it multiple times, and I struggle to get through it. I honestly do. I struggle to get through it. It's just not, I don't care for the characters. I don't care for the directing. I don't think the effects are nearly as good as the visual effects in the remake. I think it's drawn out way too long. I'm just not a fan of the original Dawn of the Dead. But this remake, I think, is miles better than the original. And this is a movie that I do thoroughly love and enjoy. I would also give this movie 4 stars. It's pretty solidly been at this position for quite a while. My position on this film hasn't really changed. It is very rewatchable. I think there's definitely an emotional effect, especially with one of the characters in particular that has to make a particular decision in the film that is a very hard decision to make. And you get that, you see that, you feel that in that moment when they have to make the decision that they make. And yeah, I think it's got a lot of heart. It's brilliantly paced. It's a lot of fun. I think the visual effects look great on the zombies and everything. And the characters are very, very well written. And again, I buy into these characters, and I feel something for them. So yeah, the Zack Snyder Dawn of the Dead, great film, 4 stars. I love it. It's my number 6. Coming into number 5, we have Man of Steel from 2013. Yes, the introduction into the DCEU, the first movie within the DCEU. Zack Snyder kind of kicks us off with Man of Steel. And I gotta say, this has been a film that has grown on me over time. Originally, I was kind of on the fence with Man of Steel. Like, I remember seeing this in theaters and thinking, that was all right. I still definitely prefer the Christopher Reeve, Richard Donner version of Superman. And I wasn't a fan of this movie originally. I didn't hate it. I didn't dislike it, but if you would have asked me what I would have rated this film coming out of the theaters, I would have probably given this like a 2.5 star. 2.5 stars. I didn't really enjoy it originally. Over time and over the years, as I've come back to this movie, I've gotten a lot more out of it. I've heard people defend this movie, and a lot of their defenses of the film have actually made a lot of sense. A lot of it has stuck with me again, and I can honestly say I love this movie. This is a 4-star film for me now, so it's gone up quite a bit. I don't know why I was on the fence with it originally. I guess it wasn't quite what I expected. Christopher Reeve was my Superman for so long, for so many years. This was just a very different take on the character and a very different story, and it took me a while to warm to it, I guess. But yeah, now when I watch this film, I've actually become a defender of this film. I've actually now defended this film against people that have tried to criticize it, because I do think it's actually a pretty darn good film, and I actually have a desire to go back to it now. It is very rewatchable. I think Henry Cavill does a very good job as Superman. I think Michael Shannon does a great job as Zod. Very believable bad guy. Very believable in that role. You see his perspective and where he's coming from and his motive and what he's after. It makes sense. We have a very coherent story in this film that makes sense. I love seeing Clark as a kid and seeing him kind of struggle, learning to become a man, learning to have restraint and discipline. And I think it's a great storytelling, and again, beautifully shot by Snyder, great direction, and I love it. It's a 4-star film, and it is my number 5. Coming in at number 4, we have 300, with, of course, King Leonidas taking on Xerxes and the armies of the Persian army. Great stuff, man. Love 300. I've always loved 300. This is a movie that I've never disliked. I've always enjoyed it, always had a blast with it. I think that Gerard Butler just kills it as King Leonidas. I just totally buy into him as King Leonidas. To me, he nails that character hook, line, and sinker. He looks the part. His physique is just, he's a beast in this film. And everyone really just, they really go the next mile to transform their bodies into just these, Spartan warriors. And yeah, just great stuff. I love the cinematography in this film. The grays with the golds and the copper, just very stylistic of Snyder in this film. And I love the action. It's a brilliant film. I thoroughly enjoy it. I give this one 4.5 stars. It's definitely got a lot of heart to it, especially in that third act. It's very rewatchable as well. I think that what keeps it out of that 5-star tier, I think there's a couple of things I think with the script that could have been done a little bit better. Things that I felt were a little bit rushed, a little bit forced, that I think could have been flushed out a little bit more, maybe stretch the film a little bit. I don't think it needed to be, 2.5 hours, but this movie's, it doesn't even hit 2 hours. And I feel like some of the film suffers because of that. I think there were a few things that were maybe rushed a little bit, that I would have liked a little bit more time with a couple of these characters, have a little bit more answers to a few things. But overall, I think it's a great film. I thoroughly enjoy it, have a lot of fun with it. 4.5 star film. It's my number 4. Coming in at number 3, and I'll just go ahead and say all of these top 3 are 5-star films. So if you would put my number 3 as your number 1, I'm totally okay with that, because all 3 of these are 5-star films. They're all perfection as far as I'm concerned. I love all 3 of these movies. And again, you could rearrange them in any order and I wouldn't be upset about it at all. And I actually had to think about it. Like, I had to think how I would rank these top 3, because they're all, again, perfect films, subjectively speaking. But at the end of the day, I've settled with how I've ranked them. My number 3 is Watchmen. This is a film adaptation of the Frank Miller novel, which I have not read the novel. I've only ever just seen the movie, and I love the movie. This is just a brilliant film. Zack Snyder, this may be his, if we're just talking technically speaking, this may be his best film. It's a very coherent film. You get invested with all these characters, have plenty of screen time for you to invest in their stories, for you to buy into what they're doing. The action is great. The pacing is great. That third act carries a lot of weight, a lot of emotional impact to it. I love the performances here as well. The costumes are great. The storytelling is great. The score is great. The visual effects look amazing. It's just, it's next level storytelling and just directing. I think Snyder just directs the heck out of this film, man. So, and very rewatchable as well. I could throw this on right now and enjoy it. So, yeah, Watchmen is just an absolute blast. It's a masterpiece. I love it. I really don't have any complaints with this film. It's 5 stars, and it's my number 3. Taking us into the top 2, my number 2 is Batman vs. Superman: Dawn of Justice Ultimate Edition. That's the only edition that I really, mess with or touch or really consider. The theatrical edition, as far as I'm concerned, no longer really exists. I mean, I know it technically does still exist, but the only edition that matters to me is the Ultimate Edition of BVS. But yeah, so that's what I'm rating here, and it's a masterpiece. I love it. I absolutely love it. Now, granted, I'm a huge Batman fan, as you can tell, as you can see. If you're not new to my channel, if you've been with me any time, you've heard that ad nauseum, probably tired of hearing me say I'm a Batman fan, but I am. Yeah, I've loved Batman ever since I was a kid. And yeah, this is Batman from the comics. And if you grow up reading Batman comics and reading Batman novels, as I have, the images that you see on the pages of those novels is transported onto the screen in this film. And that's one reason Ben Affleck's version of Batman is my favorite Batman. He looks the part to an absolute T. He's a beast. He is bodied up in this movie. He's a savage, man. He's an absolute savage, and I love it. I love the voice alternator that he uses. The costume looks great. There are scenes directly out of the Dark Knight Returns novel, which is my favorite Batman graphic novel. And I love seeing those shots on the screen. There are direct lines and dialogue from that novel in this movie. So yeah, I thoroughly enjoy it. I think it's pasted brilliantly. I don't get bored at all. I'm thoroughly invested in the story all the way through. A lot of the criticisms I've heard of this movie do not hold up at all. I think they're easily debunked. I've debunked a number of them myself. I think it's, subjectively speaking, a perfect film. It gives me a perfect viewing experience. I love it. It has a lot of heart. And I do think it actually pulls off everything it's trying to do. It's got a lot of different stories going on in this movie. And a lot of people feel like it just didn't work. It was too much. I don't buy it. I think it lands. I think Snyder actually managed to pull off what it was he was going for. Now, that being said, would I have liked to have gotten more of Doomsday? Yes, I would have. Would I have liked to gotten a better version of Doomsday? Yes, I would have. Would I like to have gotten a better version of Lex Luthor? Yes, I would have. But none of those things are necessarily criticisms for me, because they still work within the story that Snyder is telling. They still work within the realm of which they fit in. So they're not really criticisms for me. I'm still able to invest and accept and buy what we get. So I think there's a lot of character growth in this movie by both Bruce and Clark. In this movie, I think both heroes get development in this film. I think both guys get have a lot of heart and growth in this film. So yeah, I love BVS. Again, the Ultimate Edition is the only one that I'm considering here, but yeah, it's my second favorite. I love it. 5-star film. It's my number 2. But coming in at number 1, the only one that's left, and that is, of course, Zack Snyder's Justice League. Yes, it is so unfortunate that this did not get a theatrical release, because I would have just been, I would have been a 5-year-old kid again, watching this in theaters. I would have just, freaked out. I would have freaked out. I freaked out just watching it from home. But love this movie. It is night and day better than the Joss Whedon version of this movie. Everything is an improvement. The characters are an improvement. The story is an improvement. The visual effects are an improvement. The editing is an improvement. The pacing is an improvement. Everything is an improvement. The performances are an improvement. Everything is an improvement from the Joss Whedon version. So yeah, it's a crime against cinema that the studios have given Snyder the shaft as they have. And quite frankly, I'm not excited about what James Gunn is doing with DC. I'm not a fan of his ideas. I don't think he's going to take DC in the right direction. I think they should have given Zack Snyder the right to finish off his story, meaning allow him to make a Justice League Part 2 and 3 as he originally wanted to. I'm glad that we have this film. I'm glad that it exists, and I'm glad that he was finally able to make the film that he wanted to make, and we got the story that we wanted to get. But the movie also leaves me wanting so much more, and knowing that we'll never get more just infuriates me, because I would have loved to have seen where Snyder would have taken Part 2 and Part 3 of this story. So yeah, Darkseid is just a freaking beast, man. And anyone who would debate who would win between Darkseid, DCU Darkseid, and Thanos from the MCU can kick rocks, because Darkseid he's gonna body Thanos, bro. He's gonna body Thanos with or without the gauntlet. Bring it on, son. You can go pound sand, because Darkseid's gonna eat you alive. So yeah, I'm a DC guy. What can you do? I make no apologies for it. I love this movie. I think all the characters have a part to play. I think each member brings something to the film. They have their moment to shine. And yeah, I absolutely love it. So Zack Snyder's Justice League is my number one 5-star film. It's perfect in my opinion. And there you go. That is my ranking of all 11 of Zack Snyder's movies. Let me know your ranking in the comment section. How would you rank his films? What is your favorite Zack Snyder movie? Let me know in the comment section. Thank you guys for tuning in. And until next time, kick it and rock on.